On June 2, 2026, the White House made a decision that will shape the next decade of artificial intelligence in America. They ripped up stricter oversight rules and bet everything on innovation. But with billions pouring into AI and alarm bells ringing across the industry, the question isn't whether America will lead, it's whether that leadership comes with a safety net or a cliff edge. On June 2, 2026, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order titled Promoting Advanced Artificial Intelligence Innovation and Security. Now, here's what's critical to understand about this order. It replaced an earlier proposal that reportedly contained significantly stricter requirements for AI companies. The White House deliberately narrowed its oversight approach. The official framing is straightforward. The order states that the United States continues to lead the world in AI because of the enormous talent and innovation of the AI industry, and explicitly because, quote, we refuse to stifle this innovation with overly burdensome regulation. So the administration is taking a clear position. Regulation is framed as a potential threat to American competitiveness, not as a necessary guardrail. The order does address cybersecurity and the protection of critical infrastructure. It's not a total free-for-all. But compared to the earlier draft, the compliance requirements on AI companies were substantially weakened. This matters because executive orders set the regulatory tone that agencies like the FTC, the Department of Commerce, and others follow. When the White House signals a light-touch approach, enforcement priorities shift across the entire federal government. And that shift happened quietly, buried in the news cycle of early June, when most people weren't paying attention. Let's talk about the numbers, because they're staggering. According to The Guardian's analysis published June 7, 2026, expenditure on AI is growing fast, and consumer take-up is accelerating. We're talking about billions of dollars flowing from the biggest tech companies on Earth into AI infrastructure, compute capacity, and talent acquisition. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta. The combined AI capital expenditure across these companies has reached levels that would have seemed absurd just 2 years ago. We're in the hundreds of billions collectively. But here's what The Guardian flagged, and what I think is the most important takeaway: the returns are still largely hypothetical. These companies are spending at a scale that assumes AI will become as fundamental to the economy as electricity or the internet. Maybe it will. But right now, the revenue models for generative AI are still being figured out. Consumer adoption is real. People are using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot in massive numbers. But converting that usage into sustainable, margin-positive revenue is an open question. The Guardian used the phrase alarm bells are sounding, and they're right too. When you have this much capital chasing returns that are still unproven, you have the classic ingredients of a bubble. Not necessarily a bubble that will pop catastrophically, but a period of overinvestment where expectations wildly outpace reality. The AI companies themselves acknowledge this tension. They're pouring money in while simultaneously telling investors that profitability is years away. That's not inherently wrong. Amazon operated at a loss for years. But it does mean the current spending levels are a bet on a future that hasn't arrived yet. So why would the White House actively roll back AI oversight at exactly the moment when experts are sounding alarms? The answer comes down to one word: China. The executive order's underlying logic is a geopolitical bet. The administration believes that heavy regulation would slow American AI development at a time when the global AI race is existential. China has been pouring state resources into AI. They have a different model: state-directed, massive compute build-outs, and no meaningful democratic debate about safety trade-offs. The American argument is that if the U.S. burdens its companies with compliance costs, reporting requirements, and safety audits, while China faces no such constraints, America loses the race. And whoever leads in AI leads in everything: economic productivity, military capability, intelligence operations, scientific research. This is not a crazy argument. There's genuine strategic logic here. But it's also an argument that conveniently aligns with what the tech industry wants. When the White House says it refuses to impose overly burdensome regulation, tech companies hear exactly what they want to hear: a green light to move fast. The problem is that overly burdensome is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Some regulation is genuinely burdensome and counterproductive. some regulation prevents real harm. The executive order doesn't clearly distinguish between the two, it just signals that the default posture is hands-off. And in an industry where the products being built have genuinely unprecedented capabilities, that's a calculated risk. While the policy world was debating regulation, the technology itself kept accelerating. At Google I/O in late May 2026, Google confirmed that Gemini 3.5 Pro is, quote, coming next month, putting it squarely in the June 2026 release window. This is significant for a few reasons. First, it demonstrates the relentless pace of model improvement. We've gone from GPT-3 stunning people with coherent text in 2020 to models in 2026 that can reason across text, images, audio, and code simultaneously. The cadence is roughly every 6 to 12 months for a meaningful capability jump. Second, and this connects directly to the regulatory story, when you have new frontier models dropping every few months, regulation written today is almost immediately outdated. The executive order signed on June 2 is regulating a landscape that will look fundamentally different by the time Gemini 3.5 Pro ships, let alone by 2027. This is the core tension in AI governance. Technology moves at the speed of compute clusters. Policy moves at the speed of bureaucracy. The gap between those two speeds is widening, not narrowing. One AI News roundup from June 8 framed the situation perfectly: watch closely, invest accordingly, believe when you see production deployments. That's the right frame. Because right now, we're in a period where the capabilities being announced and the capabilities being deployed in production are increasingly divergent. Demos look incredible. Production systems still have reliability problems, hallucination issues, and security vulnerabilities. The models are getting better fast, but the gap between marketing and reality remains. Here's what I find most interesting about this executive order: its full title includes the word security. The administration isn't ignoring security, it's arguing that innovation itself is the path to security. The logic goes like this: the best defense against AI-enabled threats is better AI. If America builds the most advanced AI systems, it can use them to detect cyber attacks, harden critical infrastructure, and outpace adversarial use of AI by other nations. There's truth to this. AI is genuinely powerful for defensive cybersecurity, pattern recognition, anomaly detection, automated threat response. Advanced AI could make American infrastructure dramatically more resilient. But here's the paradox: the same deregulated environment that accelerates defensive AI also accelerates offensive AI. When you tell companies to move fast and reduce oversight, you're not just speeding up the good applications. You're speeding up everything. AI systems that can generate convincing phishing campaigns at scale. AI systems that can find zero-day vulnerabilities. AI systems that can create deepfakes indistinguishable from reality. The executive order's approach essentially bets that American innovation will produce defenses faster than adversaries can weaponize the same technology. That's a real bet. It could pay off. But it's worth being honest about what we're trading away. The stricter requirements in the earlier draft, the ones that were removed, likely included things like mandatory safety testing, red teaming requirements, and reporting obligations for frontier model deployments. Those aren't arbitrary red tape. They're the mechanisms by which a government can actually know whether the systems being built are safe before they're deployed at scale. Without them, the government is flying blind. So where does this leave us? The United States has made a deliberate, strategic choice. It's betting that speed, innovation, and minimal regulation will keep America ahead in the AI race, and that the benefits of that lead will outweigh the risks of moving without guardrails. Maybe they're right. The American tech industry is genuinely the best in the world, and the models being built here are extraordinary. But I keep coming back to one thing: billions are being spent, and the returns are still hypothetical. The technology is accelerating faster than our ability to understand its consequences. And the government just decided to watch from a greater distance. The future isn't predetermined here. It's being shaped right now, in server farms and boardrooms and regulatory offices, by decisions that most people will never hear about. The question isn't whether AI will transform our world, it already is. The question is whether we'll have any say in how. That's worth paying attention to. Thanks for watching.